This episode right here is brought to you by The Great Courses Plus.
Hey Geographies, so I know you're all waiting for the country episodes. The next one will be up next week, but until then I kind of want to address a little issue that you guys have brought up in the past. As you know, a while back for Geography Go, I went to the Middle East countries of Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, or for those of you who are verbally challenged, Qatar. But the videos that garnered the most responses were the Saudi Arabia episodes, and a lot of people, specifically people who have never been there, seem to have a lot of opinions about Saudi Arabia. So in this video, I'm just going to kind of explain the experience and talk about the things that I noticed and a few misconceptions that I had that were dispelled. Number one, crossing the border. This was a little nerve-wracking. As you guys know, I took the King Fahd Causeway across from Bahrain into Saudi Arabia. Getting the visa was a little bit of a strenuous process. Like, in order to get it, I had to get a commercial visa, which meant I had to be sponsored by someone who was living in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of paperwork, and even at the bottom of the paperwork, it said I could still be denied upon entry for any reason. So when I got to the border, I had to turn off the camera. They brought me to a building. I had to get my thumbprint, and they took a picture of me. Then I had to get prints of my other 4 fingers. The guy stared at me. He looked at my passport, looked at me, looked at my passport, and then finally, stamp. You're in. I am so happy and grateful that Laith, my Bahraini friend, was with me the whole time. He was helping me out. He was speaking Arabic. Plus, he was like bigger and more jacked than all the Saudi guards. So I don't know, maybe having a big Arab friend helps. Number 2, traditional versus modern. Now, of course, there's no surprise. Saudi Arabia is a lot more traditional and religious than the other Gulf states. However, they're also very metropolitan and urbanly developed. Or at least Riyadh, the capital city that I visited. The whole city is loaded with skyscrapers. However, they're only allowed to build them adjacent to one road in the city. Virtually every Western food franchise you can think of is in Riyadh, like McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, which by the way, Subway sells a halloumi sandwich. Even the Canadian ones like Tim Hortons are in there. They love their fast food just like anybody else. However, there is a law that says that any foreign franchise that enters into the country must be managed and operated by a Saudi citizen who becomes the primary beneficiary of the business. And also, I had seen this in pictures and videos before, but I finally witnessed it. When you go to any like mall or big department store area, anytime there's like a picture of a model, their faces and necks are always blocked out. This is because of the modesty laws, which brings us to number 3, the role of women. This is probably what shocked me the most because I assumed that Saudi Arabia was incredibly rooted in Islam, therefore the modesty rules would be like in full force. Like, I thought all women would be like in burqas or niqabs with just like the little slit to show their eyes, or like the mesh. Although all women are required to wear abayas, you know, that loose-fitting flappy gown thing typically comes in black, although I heard in Jeddah they can change up the colors. Most women don't even cover their faces, and actually a lot of women, mostly expats and foreigners, don't even cover their heads at all. It's totally okay for women to do that in Saudi Arabia. I didn't know that. Actually, I remember one night I even saw a girl, like her head was shaved, like she had like a buzz cut, and she was smoking with her other girlfriends on the street. Like, that was probably the most interesting sight I ever saw. Now, I already knew that women could wear whatever they wanted in the household, but what I didn't know was that they could also wear whatever they wanted in the presence of a guest who wasn't part of their family, like me. So when I went to my host's house, his daughter and his wife and her friends were all there, and they greeted me, and they were just wearing like typical Western jeans and t-shirts. I was like, oh, okay. The funny thing is, they asked if they could take a picture with me, and at first I was like, yeah, sure. But then I had to like kind of pause for a sec. I didn't want to like infringe on any kind of like social taboos. You know, here in the West, we typically like side hug each other and smile, but I didn't know if that was appropriate to do in Saudi Arabia. So I literally just like stood next to each of the girls individually, and I smiled and pointed at them. Like, I figured that was a safe bet. Then there's the whole women can't drive thing. That's kind of technically not completely true. Some women can drive if they apply for a special government issued permit that proves that they need it. This especially applies to women in the rural outskirt areas or the countryside where they might not always have a man to drive them far distances. Also, this kind of applies to all the Gulf states, but you'll notice that in the Gulf, there are more men than women. This is partially because of the high expat ratio that really distorts the gender balance. In Saudi Arabia, you will see women on the streets. However, they typically travel in packs of women, like with lots of other women around them. Very, very, very few times did I see a woman walking by herself on the streets. Otherwise, it was just men. So now we move on to number 4, the role of religion and outside religions or worldviews. This is what kind of threw me off guard a little bit because, you know, here in the West, we're kind of taught that like Saudi Arabia, unless if you are an Islam devout Arab man, you have no freedom. You will be killed in Saudi Arabia if you are not a Muslim. This is just simply not true. I mean, I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian, and I went there and came back just fine. You will not get killed just for being a self-professed non-Muslim in Saudi Arabia. There's already communities of non non-Muslims living in Saudi Arabia, like Christians and Jews that have lived alongside their Muslim neighbors for centuries and generations. The only two places that non-Muslims are technically banned from are Mecca and Medina, even though non-Muslims have gone there in the past. What is taken seriously though is any kind of open public proselytizing or evangelism of anything outside of Islam. That is taken seriously. Speech and press are still restricted in that regard. Churches, temples, and synagogues are not allowed to be built. Literature is not allowed to be published. However, people still kind of get around that with, printers. And pretty much all worship is confined to the home. However, just being a self-professed non-Muslim is not illegal. It might not be particularly advantageous in certain circumstances, but nonetheless not illegal. However, piggybacking off of that, apostasy is taken very seriously. A Muslim converting outside of Islam, and especially a Saudi citizen, is taken very seriously. It's kind of not only just socially unacceptable, but also kind of legally. Saudi Arabia does follow a Wahhabi interpreted version of Sharia law, which does kind of have strict repercussions for apostasy, which brings us to number 5. If anything crazy happens, it's underground. Now, Saudi Arabia is interesting because it's kind of like any other country in which the people still have the same dreams and desires. It's just they kind of have to find a different way to achieve them. Saudi Arabia is a country that holds tight to tradition. Every day you have the adhan, or the call to prayer. Everything shuts down until the call is over and then reopens. Many buildings and public settings are segregated between men and women. Images of the king and his family members are everywhere. Water costs more than gas. Summers can reach about 50 degrees Celsius, and the citizens here are just used to that literally every day of their lives. Now the thing is, on the surface, Saudi Arabia does kind of look like this heavily restrictive, strict theocratic society driven by centuries-old customs and values, and to some extent that is kind of true. However, when you talk to the people in the country, you'll realize they're actually kind of very clever and creative when it comes to bypassing all the regulations. You have no idea how many people in the Middle East have VPN proxy servers to sidestep internet restrictions. For TV, they either buy satellites or they stream and screen share from their servers. You want that new banned pop song from Germany? Yeah, just download it and hide it on a layered folder. Women are technically not allowed to take part in organized sports. However, some underground gyms and facilities have opened up, and the government is actually kind of starting to become a little bit more lenient towards it. I mean, in the end, as time goes on, Saudi Arabia starts to realize that in an age of ever advancing technology and global communication, they can't help but see a population aspire for newer and greater heights. So therefore, they're kind of like always trying to figure out a system that reconciles both historical culture and modernity. It's gonna be interesting to see what the future looks like for Saudi Arabia. And before we go, just like last time, once again, our good friends at the Great Courses Plus have decided they want to help out and support Geography Now. Love these guys, gotta tell you to check them out. These guys have over 7,000 online courses taught by highly accredited professors and professionals in subjects all across the academic spectrum: math, science, health and fitness, how to draw, how to grow plants. They even have a course that teaches you about the customs of the world. I'm probably gonna check that one out. And once again, best part, no tests, no homework. You just learn. You can get a free 1-month trial by going to this link right here. I'll put it in the description so you can click on it, thegreatcoursesplus.com/geography, or you can just sign up for one of their plans that has really good rates. It's literally just like college at your fingertips. Thanks, Great Courses Plus. Geography Now salutes you. And with that being said, thank you so much, Geography Peeps, for not only your patience, but for just being the coolest, awesomest, smartest group of YouTube subscribers on the planet. So I'm gonna get back to editing some videos and more country episodes coming up next week and the weeks after that following. Stay tuned, stay cool.